Hey guys, my name is Molly and I'm here with Emma, and today we are hosting Sassy Stuff, here to talk about all things SEC football, some other things, and our favorite pranks.
Well, Molly, it was a very, very exciting week of college football, to say the least. With the crowning moment, the crowning jewel of the weekend coming from that Alabama and Georgia game.
It definitely didn't go as I was thinking it was going to go. I actually didn't see Bama rolling out on top of this, but you know what? I'm happy that they got together, like we talked on the live Friday. They got together. Between them having a new team, a new coach, and a new chemistry going, they've also got some new players, some new brand new rookies. I think it's been a good week for them, and I hope that they continue to play on that path for themselves.
No, I mean, this game was a movie, to say the least. And we, the lucky viewers of that movie, got to see absolute art when it comes to college football. I mean, watching this game, I thought it was going to be a nail biter the whole time, but you go into it and Alabama went up 30-7 by half. They were up 21 points by the end of the first quarter. This was Kalen DeBoer's offense put in full force at Alabama, and it was beautiful to watch. I mean, we talked about it last week that everyone started clicking with Kalen DeBoer's offense against Wisconsin. They had that bye week to like settle down and really recover from injuries and anything like that. But this was the offense. You had trick plays. You had beautiful chemistry between Milrow and Ryan Williams, who had literally kill everyone across his face during the game, and he certainly did. He got one ball, juggled it for a few yards, and then took it all the way down the field. He caught another one and juked out three players for a touchdown to take Alabama to that 41-point lead. This kid is absolutely amazing, and the craziest thing is he's a minor. He's a minor. He's better than the whole Georgia offensive side.
Georgia definitely didn't play the way that they have been playing, so which kind of makes me happy just as a Texas fan, hoping that they roll into this rivalry game a little weak, considering they're already on the losing streak with the rivalries. But they definitely didn't bring it to the table like they normally do. Like I said, I was favoring Georgia. I thought Georgia was going to take it all the way. I was really surprised to see that Bama came out on top, just because the way Bama was playing, like you said, I think they have finally clicked. They have finally got the chemistry going.
No, this game, the whole first half, I was sitting there being like, wow, wow, wow. I don't think anybody believed that they were going to take that great of a lead. Um, but the offense was just so dynamic, and the defense was really, really good at holding that Georgia offense and really rattling them, especially Carson Beck. I mean, Carson Beck, we talked about last week, is the king of consistency. This guy was a rattle. He threw interceptions. He threw plays way over the heads of his receivers. Like, he was not doing well in that first half. So it was quite shocking to see Carson Beck so rattled. And then you have Milrow over here playing a near perfect game in that first half in this incredibly developed Kalen DeBoer offense. And it was a sight to see. They even panned to Nick Saban after they were up by three touchdowns. He just had his hand over his mouth. And I'm like, that dude's smiling so big right now. Like, Milrow is a complete athlete. He is the man on this team, and if he continues down this path, I think he might even get that Heisman award.
Like I said, absolutely agree. I think it was just not what we predicted, but you know what? Those always make the best games, are the unpredictable
Oh,
ones.
yeah.
I think it was, like you said, it was a movie. From the highlights that I got to see, it was very graceful, just the way they carried the ball into the
Yeah.
end zone. They threw it. So, like I said, unpredictable. Definitely did not favor them. Very impressed with the way they played. Unimpressed with the way I'm unimpressed. I'm shocked with the way Georgia played. Like you said, they've been such a consistent team over and over and over every game, and they show up and they just are on it.
I I've never seen them that good to start out, but then you get to halftime, and you come back, and Georgia immediately turns on, and Bama seems somehow limited.
Yeah,
Carson is making play after play. He is driving down the field so quickly, which they could not do in that first half. Kirby is excellent at making adjustments during halftime. You saw that in the Clemson game. You saw that in the Kentucky game. He can make those adjustments to benefit his players to make the plays they need to play to be successful. They were able to come back. They were able to take the lead, which is absolutely insane. And on the other hand, you look at the Alabama offensive side and you're like, well, where is that incredible offense in the first half? Because if we had a fraction of that right now, we would be up another 2 or 3 touchdowns, and this game would have been over in the 3rd quarter, but it kinda got quiet, it kinda got a little bit more conservative, which I blame the coaching staff for. I don't really know why they brought it all back, but they stopped playing aggressive and they stopped playing those explosive plays, and then when they got back to that at the end of the game, that's when things got better. That's when they were able to take that lead, and that's when they were able to prove that they are now the number 1 team in the nation. No, this game was electric until the very end, especially when it ended with Xavier Brown's interception in the end zone with 43 seconds left in the game, and that just sealed Bama's win. It was a sight to see. Everyone was jumping up and down. They were like absolutely ecstatic. It was sensational. And then at the end of the game, of course, you get that Rammer Jammer chant. We just beat the hell out of you, and the passion was there. But this is huge for Kalen DeBoer that he came into this taking over from the GOAT, because you have DeBear, DeGoat, and now DeBoer. And they were like, what are you going to do with Alabama? Alabama's not going to be the same because Nick Saban isn't here anymore. And it's like, Alabama was Alabama before Nick Saban, and Alabama's going to be Alabama after Nick Saban. And Kalen DeBoer proved that. DeBoer is a winner. DeBoer don't lose. And he proves that against Georgia. He proved that he can stand in the SEC strong and he can take down what everyone was saying was the number 1 team in the country coming into this season. So it's incredible to see that. And then on the flip side, you look at Kirby Smart and it's like, did you have a Nick Saban problem or did you have an Alabama problem? And now being 1-6 against Alabama, playing against somebody else that wasn't Nick Saban, you definitely have an Alabama problem. And I think everybody else has an Alabama problem moving forward. So with Georgia, um, they have a tough road ahead of them now. They have to go to Ole Miss. They have to go to Texas. Now you don't have that safety net anymore. You drop one game, you might be okay. You drop that second game, I don't know if you're gonna make it to those playoffs.
I mean, and I would be rattled if I was them. I'd be a little rattled from going as the number 1, undefeated team to, oh, we were beating Bama, who hasn't been consistent at all. And to follow up on what you were saying about the difference between DeBoer and Saban, there's not a huge one. I think they're both phenomenal coaches. I think they have very different approaches. And I think it's like you and I have been talking, the last few weeks on lives and in previous episodes, just getting the chemistry together with DeBoer. Those guys are so used to Saban. He's been there forever. I mean, they probably dreamed as little boys growing up and being able to play for him. So just to have that transition and it go not quite as smooth as I think DeBoer was hoping, but now it's finally falling into place. And I think this is probably something that they've been talking about on their end for months now, is falling into place and finally getting that chemistry going and that connection on the team. And they definitely played, it looked effortless to me. And I think, like you said, the off week was helpful for them. I think having DeBoer bring in, a lot of community work together was great. I'm not sure what they did last week on their week off. It helped them. It made them play better. It made them better humans. And I'm really looking forward. But Georgia has a rough few games ahead. I think the SEC weeks 6, 7, and 8 are very, very, very competitive. And if they're rattled at all, they are not looking at a good few away games.
No, not at all. And I mean, you look at Georgia and they are consistent, but if you can break up that consistency and you can really rattle them and you can throw them off their game, then they can be weakened. They can be beat, as we have seen now. So it'll be really interesting to see what happens. On the flip side, there is a potential that both of these teams will be in that SEC championship. Both of these teams will be in that 12-team playoff, and both of these teams could be at that national championship game. So this may not be the final matchup between Georgia and Bama. And so this is just one story this season in a saga that may continue, which will be super exciting. Did you watch Game Day? It was so heartwarming. I don't know if you watched it.
Yes, I did.
Okay.
I enjoy games. I think it's funny that you're like, "I sit there with my cats."
I did. I was sitting there, I had my 2 kittens, and I was watching Nick Saban and his beautiful wife, Miss Terry, on that stage together back home in Tuscaloosa, and they were picking the games, and, when it got to the Bama Georgia game, and it got to Saban's turn, him and Miss Terry went up and held hands and faced the Tuscaloosa crowd and said, "Roll Tide," and that was just so heartwarming. It was just absolutely wonderful. There's an incredible picture of game day with Saban and Miss Terry like smiling and looking at each other. And then you got Lee Corso in his big elephant hat. It was a beautiful picture. It looked like a painting. With the heart of it being Miss Terry and Nick Saban back home in Tuscaloosa, same old day. So it was lovely. I had a good game day with my 2 cats.
Oh, I love this. You're like, "I put it on multi-view and I just, like, have a great
Oh,
day."
yeah, and then we just put all the games on multi-view, and then you just watch all of them bounce around, you see what's most interesting to you until you had the main event of that Bama Georgia game later in the night. It's great. I had a great time.
It's like one of the best games. I was watching it all night last night. I was like, "This is such a good game."
Oh, yeah, and, I don't know, if you listen to him, but I love Paul Feinbaum. And he was on, I don't know if after the game or the morning after, and he said, "I've been working in the SEC for 40 years, and this is the best game I've ever seen in my life." And I was like, "Yeah, let's go."
It
If
was
he says it, then I believe it.
I said it, I've been predicting it from the beginning. I said I don't like Kentucky, but I do think that they're gonna come out on top. I think every team in the SEC obviously has a phenomenal or is known for having a phenomenal football program. Obviously, they are the SEC, which I, beg to differ, but I think is like the best collegiate league there is. Um, However, seeing Kentucky play this week, they were just monsters. I mean, they were monsters. It was crazy. It was such a good game. And I'm looking forward to seeing them play next week.
I think Kentucky was hungry. I mean, they lost to Georgia by 1 point. And you bring in another team who is highly favored over you, and especially a team with a crazy good offense that we've just been praising over and over and over with Lane Kiffin's scheme and Jackson Dart's killer arm, and it's just a beautiful combination. But then you put them up against Kentucky's defense, and Kentucky's defense were able to hold them. And that was the big difference in this game. And it kind of humanizes Ole Miss a little bit because they've been putting up these crazy numbers. And now you're like, oh, you got to beat them with your defense. And if you can do that and you can contain the quarterback, you can win that game.
Yeah.
So I think moving forward, they got to figure that out a little bit. They got to figure out when they come up against these great defenses, and Kentucky has a great defense. They have proven that this season, whether they've won or lost, they have shown out on that defensive side. It's just whether or not they can put up enough points in that game. But they have shown that they can hold these teams. So seeing that with Ole Miss losing to them, you kind of see your little avenue to beat Ole Miss this season. And Ole Miss is going to be playing some difficult games this year.
Yeah, I think, like I said earlier, I think every matchup, and we said this last week's week felt a little sleepy. It felt kind of, this week
Yeah.
was the start, to me, almost the start of the whole season is what it felt like. It felt like there was a lot of
Yeah.
there's a lot of eagerness to get to those big rivalries. I think, like you said, Kentucky came in very, very hungry. I think they are also coming up against some really hard and difficult games coming. So I think they are just on it. They are showing up. They're hungry, and their defense, like I said, they were monsters. I mean, they were beasts on the field.
Well, I'm looking at their schedule, and so they played Ole Miss, which has a killer offense. Now they have to go to Texas and they have to go to Tennessee later in this season. Those teams have shown they are monsters on offense too. So will Kentucky be able to contain them? That is going to be so interesting to watch. And Ole Miss now kind of faces a critical point in their season, kind of like Georgia. They really have to regroup quickly. They are going to be playing Georgia very soon. And like Bama, they have that explosive offense. It's just whether or not they're able to rattle Georgia as we saw Alabama do. Next thing we have to look at is that Oklahoma Auburn game. The final score in the game was 27-21. And Oklahoma really struggled early in this game. Which happened the last game they played as well. But early in the season, they were coming out quick. They had high momentum going into the game, and they kind of teetered off at the end. This game was kind of the opposite. They really struggled early, and Auburn's defense really limited the Sooners' offensive protection, forcing Oklahoma into these very tough situations, which really messed up their gameplay in a lot of ways.
You and I have talked about this before. We're going to probably continue talking about it throughout the season. Oklahoma is not doing well. I don't think they are as confident of a team in the SEC as they were in previous years. It, I don't know if this is just beginners anxiousness coming into the season, but we're officially going into week 6 and they are still showing up kind of the same each week. They're not really getting any better. I don't know. I don't know what the fix is for them, how they can start showing up for each other. I will say Auburn definitely had a better game than they've been having. Auburn has been having a lot of issues, especially considering they've been teeter-tottering between quarterbacks and just trying to figure out what team works best. So it's kind of starting to bring that together a little bit more. But I'm interested to see what Oklahoma has to bring in the next few weeks, considering every week from now on is literally a rivalry game. Um,
Oh, absolutely. I mean, October 12th is the Red River Rivalry. They will be playing Texas. That is a huge game. And you're going to be playing up against either a Manning or a Ewers, not a Peyton Thorne. So this is going to be a more dynamic offense. You're going to be playing against this is going to be a more dynamic defense you're going to be playing against. So their struggles early on are not boding well for them in the future, especially that October. October is such a crazy month in college football. We got our little first month jitters out, and you should be starting to become the team that you're going to be at the end of the season now. And right now, I think they're still wavering.
yeah, there's still I don't know if it's the jitters or they're just not going to have a good year. I don't know if they can't just shake the first few games that they had. They are just not showing up like they traditionally have in previous years. They can't afford to keep doing that though going forward. These games are so intense that they're coming into. Like you just said, they're going to play up against Texas. Maybe Manning hasn't had a super difficult game yet, but I actually, with the way Oklahoma's been playing, I think Manning could possibly handle that game. Just maybe he's gotten a few first game jitters out. He normally sits, he's their second string. So I feel like getting him out there in these games was kind of easing him in if Ewers is not back by then. So they're not looking good coming up against Ewers or Manning. So I feel like they need to be on it the next couple weeks.
I mean, I will always give credit to winning a conference game in the SEC. That is a feat within itself. This is the hardest conference. It just means more here. But Oklahoma did pull this game out, but it was because Thorne threw a costly pick on third and down late in the fourth quarter. So yes, your defense pulled it out for you, but you really need your offense to shine.
Yeah,
You
you're not
have to have them.
yeah, they're not coming up against quarterbacks that are throwing picks like that. So, like I said, these few rivalry games are going to be very, very difficult for Oklahoma. And even though they lucked out, let's just say that they lucked out on this game, that could not be the case for the next few if they don't get it together soon.
Absolutely.
Arkansas and A&M was like such a good game as well. All of the SEC games are always so interesting. I
They're
mean,
just great, and you never know what's gonna happen week to
they
week.
they're wild cards. Like every game you
Mhm.
turn on could like look at what happened, with Kentucky.
Oh, yeah.
It's a wild card. You just never know. One can be favored over the other. And, like you said, the bets move constantly throughout the week with the SEC. I think
Oh,
more
yeah.
so than any of the other collegiate leagues. But specifically Arkansas and A&M, I did not get to watch this weekend. However, when I watched the highlights, it looked very good. Which points away? I mean, we're talking like 17-21. That's a really, really close game.
This was 20-17, and then this was 21-17. Oh, it's just so close across the board, it's great.
I know, I know.
I think the
Um,
great thing for A&M is, like Auburn, they were kinda doing their QB shuffle around, but the great thing for A&M is I think they have found their QB and Marcel Reed. I think he did a great, great job being a game manager in that game, and he came out to a hot start, and it kinda gives you a little bit more, momentum and confidence going into the rest of your season, knowing that you can kind of rely on this guy to be the guy for your team, and that's what you need. And you figured it out in September, now you got October, November, and hopefully December through January to look forward to.
I mean, A&M traditionally it's Texas football. I mean, everybody knows Texas football in general is just like better than any other football. And I think especially coming into this season in the SEC, like all of the Texas teams, I think are having a really good year so far. But A&M specifically, I think has always just had a wonderful offense historically. And they seem to be consistent in that. And like you said, I think they finally found their quarterback. I think they're finally getting settled in this. Um, it was a very good game from the highlights that I saw. It was great, and I'm looking forward to seeing them in the next few weeks. Yeah, I mean, coming up, A&M is playing Missouri next week. That's going to be a great game. Missouri's amazing this year; they're beasts. So I'm hoping that we have another good game. But like I said in the SEC, you literally never know. It's a wild card every time. I have a hard time placing bets in this league. That's all I'm saying.
I'm not good at it. You guys should watch Danielle. She's our queen of sports betting. She's actually really good at it. I trust her with my money, and so should you. So make sure to watch her show as well every week. But for me in this game, Arkansas really struggled. They started off hot, but they finished really cold. I mean, they had a great offensive success early on, but they just made a lot of mistakes. I mean, they fumbled early in the second quarter. They had a bunch of 3 and outs. This Taylor Green was intercepted late in the second quarter. It was just too many mistakes. And when you have that many mistakes, there are only so many ways you can win after that. And they just couldn't get it done. And A&M, on the other hand, they showed resilience, which is what it takes to win in the SEC. They made the necessary plays in the fourth quarter to earn a gritty win despite being outgained by Arkansas. So they have a lot to be proud of. Again, you figured it out a bit in September, and that is key. That is the learning month. October, you need to show us what you're made of. And by November, you better be looking like that championship team if you want to win anything. So they've got momentum going. I'm kind of excited to see where they go from here. Again, it's Texas football, like you said. It's always gonna be great. It's always gonna be like aggressive and passionate and wonderful to watch. So I'm really excited to see where they're trending. And on the flip side, Arkansas has kind of been a wild card. I don't know what they're going to do week to week. Sometimes they look really great, and sometimes they are so messy, like they were this week. So moving forward for them, it's just let's be a little bit more consistent. Let's do the basic things right. Let's keep it going. So I think both of these teams have a lot to work on, but also a lot to look forward to as well.
Yeah, and kind of like you said, when you make one minor mistake in a game, if you don't almost immediately bounce back from that, it gets really messy really quick. You got to shake it off. They've been having some issues with this where, like you said, it's either they're very consistent or it's like one mistake and they're just down the hole. And I don't know if maybe there's some mental blocks that they can work on together as a team, but they can't afford to be jittery the rest of the season. Like you said, October gets if you're not looking like a championship team by the end of October, you're out.
Oh, you're out. October also has some of the best weeks all around of games, and you gotta be ready for those games.
Arkansas cannot afford to be jittery. They're playing Tennessee next week. So
Oh gosh.
yeah, that's not pretty if they're still jittery. So they need to shake it off, get it
And
together.
Tennessee's coming off a bye week, so they're gonna be locked, loaded, and ready to go.
They're coming off
Especially because they were held a little bit more. They weren't able to put up the amount of points they were in their last game, and so I think they're really wanting to show out, especially because they just moved to number 4. So they jumped up there when they didn't even play, and Georgia went all the way down to 5, and they went up to 4.
well, that's what I'm saying. Like they're coming off a bye week, not only a bye week, but they're also coming off a really big rivalry game that they're kind of pumped on. I mean, they're coming in for the win. So I So just in my opinion, if Arkansas makes even a small error, they have to learn to shake it off in this next game.
Like
Tennessee is
Taylor Swift.
shimmy, shimmy. No, shake it off, girl. Yeah, but you know what? Taylor Swift's in the football world. Let's just play our games. Let's shake it off needs to be on every Arkansas game coming forward.
With conference realignment, and teams like Texas and Oklahoma coming into the SEC, you have like USC going to the Big Ten, a lot of tradition can be lost. And I understand that argument of why people are against it. However, on the flip side, there's always good. And the good thing is you now get these incredible rivalries coming into these big, big conferences, or you have new rivalries that are going to be made. So, for example, in the SEC, I know we talk about it a lot, but we're going to have the Red River rivalry, which is huge for the SEC. That is such a big game, and now it is in the biggest conference. So, how do you feel about that?
No tradition is changing from either of these teams. I think they are still the biggest rivalry. I think they hate each other, if I'm being honest. They do not like each other at all. I could never even see like any sort of player transferring to and from either of those schools. I think they like heavily dislike each other. Um, it's one of my favorite games and also my least favorite games because there's so much like not hatred, but just like mean rivalry. Like
Disdain, loathing, like in Wicked. There's a whole song about it.
I step outside like the week of the Red Rivalry game, and if I'm in anything Texas and I come across an OU fan, they're Boomer Sooner. That's my least favorite saying. As soon as I hear somebody say that, I'm like, get out of my face, get out of my
And then
face.
Pat McAfee when, game day was at South Carolina, Oklahoma, and they was like, "Boomer, the whole game day.
I hate it. It is like my least favorite. If we had to pick a least favorite like mascot slogan slang, it would be that. I would literally take any other team over
More
OU
than
if I
people barking at you.
could. Oh my god, people are so like just and it almost comes off as not classy. So it's like just get your stuff together, win or lose with pride, move on, like it's okay. This is also the biggest rivalry because they take it so seriously. That's why I don't think there's not going to be a single tradition lost. I think if anything, they're going to amp it up. They're going to be even more um, mean and ambitious these next few weeks leading into it. I will say what my favorite thing about this rivalry is, though, is that Texas has a bye week. They have a week to rest and a week to prepare, and then they go straight to this rivalry game. So
Now, do you think Ewers will be back?
kind of like we hit on earlier, talking, about a couple other teams that are coming up on Texas. I think regardless, it would be awesome if Ewers was back. If Ewers is back at full force. If he comes back kind of injured and like half himself, I would rather have my man Manning in there. I
Never
think
go
Manning,
wrong with him.
he's once again, he's a Manning. I'm fangirling over this guy.
What a
Um,
man.
what a man this
What a
Manning
man.
if all else fails, I'm forever going to be a Manning fan. I love the Manning family. I think they're great. But I think specifically with Archie, he is a rookie. This is his like first year that he's really getting to play and getting some good playing time. Obviously, with Ewers being out, he has been able to step in. And I think the last two games were they weren't easy by any means. I'm not saying they were easy games, but I do think they were the best odds for him to step in and step up. And I think it was a good warm up for him to get ready for a rivalry game. Do I think this is going to be a lot of pressure if he plays the rivalry game with OU? Absolutely. I think Oklahoma is a tough team. They haven't been super sturdy this, whole season. And, maybe they did fine this last week. But like we were saying earlier, they're not playing against Ewers or Manning. They were playing against a quarterback who was making mistakes and errors. So our little man Archie this week didn't even throw one single interception. It was a great week for Texas. They had a great game. I think, like I said, these were great warm up games for him. I'm excited to see if he does play. If Ewers is back, by all means, that's awesome, but I only want Ewers back if he's gonna be 100% Ewers.
Absolutely. I feel the same way. You want your players at full force. You don't want them to risk further injury or anything like that. And I think Manning is an excellent backup QB. And of course, next year he will be QB1. My only concern with him starting is that Oklahoma does have a great defense. They have proven it. Um, and Manning hasn't come up against something like that yet. And there's a difference between playing in high school and playing in college, except for Alabama's Ryan Williams, who might be the best player in the league. Uh, but no, but if he does come up against this difficult defense and he is technically a rookie still, will they be able to shake him? I don't know. We'll have to wait and find out. I personally think Ewers will be back for that game, especially given that they do have this bye week coming up.
Em and I have been doing a little digging this week on the best and worst pranks of the entire just college football in general. We're not just talking about the SEC here. One of my favorite fails is the cannon war fail from Princeton. There's a cannon encased in a concrete in the concrete in the middle of the Cannon Green at Princeton. The piece itself has quite a history, but eventually it wound up muzzled down in the green at Princeton in 1875. So it's just encased there. A band of the Rutgers students spent hours trying to steal the cannon from their rival school, transporting it home to their school, Rutgers. Unfortunately for them, it was literally the wrong cannon. So they spent hours, and this is like back in the day, they spent hours and hours and hours trying to get this cannon that's supposedly like I mean, it's almost an artifact. I mean, it's amazing historical piece of whatever. They spend hours trying to get it, and then they end up stealing the wrong one. And I'm not trying to be mean, but
Awesome.
leave it to a group of college age boys to steal the wrong thing that you needed in the first place. It's kind of like when you send your boyfriend to the store and you're like, "Babe, can you get apples?" and he brings back peaches. Like they just yeah, in one ear, out the other. That's just how they work.
Oh my god. All that effort wasted.
All of
It
it.
would have been a cool prank though. I would have loved to have like seen the reaction, but obviously jokes on them. Karma.
Imagine being Princeton going into this rivalry game and they're like, "Ha ha, got your cannon," and you're like, "Ha ha, that's not even ours. That's the wrong one."
See why you didn't get into Princeton.
Literally, yeah. Like you guys are, maybe this was before they had really good concussion protocol or something. I don't know.
I love it. I love it. Well, I have an awful prank from an SEC school. It was back in 1896. It wasn't very safe, by the way. Please don't do this at all. But it was an Auburn Georgia Tech rivalry with deep roots. Before Georgia Tech's football team arrived by train, a group of Auburn students greased up the track near the station, and the train ended up carrying the Yellow Jackets extra 5 miles down the track. So it led to a long and exhausting hike for the Georgia Tech team, but they did proceed to get pummeled 45-0 by Auburn. So it wasn't great all around for the Yellow Jackets. It was also very dangerous. So that one kind of was a little bit out of hand, but still a crazy prank.
It also could have been so much worse than just them like sliding down an extra few miles. I
Oh
mean,
yeah, the death of the whole team, but everyone was okay, and then they got pummeled in college football, so they had a big beatdown,
I
and were
love.
probably traumatized about getting on a train afterwards as well.
Oh, I mean, listen, I love pranks. I love college pranks. I think they're so funny. And like I said earlier, kind of, some people don't use their full brain when they're in college. Your frontal lobe's not developed, you're probably partying, there's probably a lot of head injuries happening, especially as a football player. So some of these pranks I don't think are quite thought out, like the oil one for sure, to slick up a train track. That just seems insane to me.
Right.
Um,
But these are boys.
Once again, they're also boys. I feel like if I, was playing a rivalry school, I would hide all their jerseys or dye all their jerseys like the wrong color or
Yeah.
yeah, like do something to the locker room to make sure that they can't like shower or I mean they would just be like little very passive aggressive mean
Yeah, they
things.
get under their skin, but aren't gonna, like, kill them.
Yeah, exactly. Like I just want to like just a little. I don't need to
Mm. You
hurt
wanna
anything.
be like the little fly buzzing around their ear that they can't get rid of.
Yes, I just want to be a fly on the wall. I just want to make sure that, maybe they didn't get enough sleep before. I don't know. Maybe the fire alarms I set off all night at their
That would
hotel.
be a good prank. That would be a great prank actually, because they can't sleep,
They
especially if
can't
it's a noon game. Oh,
Yeah, they can't sleep before like a big game in the morning. That would be a beneficial prank in my opinion. But yeah,
yeah.
I think there's been a school that's done that.
You know what? I'm sure we are not geniuses who have come up with that. I'm sure that has happened, but you know what? I think it's a great idea. Well, there's been a lot of controversy in regards to the transfer portal, and even more so now because key players in certain teams are now choosing to redshirt and enter the transfer portal for numerous reasons, whether it be um, they don't feel like they're meshing with the team, even though there's only been about 4 or 5 games so far, and there's a whole season ahead of them, or the NIL deals. They don't feel like they're getting compensated enough for what they bring. They don't feel like they're getting enough playing time, maybe. And they're choosing to redshirt, abandoning the rest of the season so that they have a full year of eligibility moving forward to make up for the year that they've decided to sit out of. So I don't know. How do you feel about this, Molly?
I am very I mean, I might be canceled, I don't know, who knows? But, I'm a little indifferent because on one hand, when transfer portal first started, it was awesome because like everything starts, everything in this world, it's always like, okay, but it's gonna bring this, this, and this benefits. And I loved it because I felt like a lot of players had a lot more say so in their careers. And if they could transfer to a school that had a better coach or a better program for them, that was awesome. I think when you start mixing money into things with college sports, it gets a little tricky. Um, Especially considering, are you doing what's best for you and your education, which is what you should be at college for, or are you doing what's best for your wallet? Understandably, yes, everybody's trying. You have to afford life and do the things. I mean, what upsets me the most about the transfer portal and the NIL in general, we are treating college athletes as if they are professional athletes. When you look at the hardcore facts, less than 10% of any college football player goes to the pros. And that is lucky. You are a very, very lucky person. You are very skilled. You are the best of the best to get to go to the pros. That's why you're rewarded as high as you are in the pros. I don't I don't love the fact that we are rewarding college athletes, with a very large paycheck and also a very free education that they will be able to use regardless of the way their football career goes. It's a very controversial thing that I'm believing in because there's also female athletes that are not going to make the same amount of money in the NIL as the male athletes are. There's a lot of ups and downs here, and I understand football programs make a lot of money and they do deserve some compensation, but some of these NIL deals are borderline professional, and I think the best of the best make it to the pros, and those guys do deserve the best of the best income for that.
Absolutely. They did a really good segment on this during College Game Day, and Nick Saban said, "It's stuff like this why I retired. This is why I retired. You either get into it or you get out of it, and it's here to stay. You're gonna live with it at this point. College football brings in so much money, and I do think these boys should be compensated. They are putting their time, their effort, and their bodies on the line. They get injuries all the freaking time, and so they deserve some sort of compensation. Yes, you get your college paid for, which is no small feat in the USA. You get all your meals paid for, your housing paid for. That is huge. But if you are those key players, I do think because we are using your name, image, and likeness
Absolutely.
um, to promote the team and to get money for the team, then you should get a cut of that. Where I where it loses me is when you are able to redshirt mid-season when there have literally your team has played 4 or 5 games. I think if you're going to continue down this path with the NIL, you have to have some sort of contract and you have to have some sort of consequences. Just if
Mhm.
you're going to treat them like pros, treat them like pros. You
Pros.
say, you're coming to my school, you're giving me at least 2 years before you can enter the transfer portal. I will give you your payout. You will get this money if you stay here for 2 years. If you decide to redshirt and transfer, you will be losing a big chunk of that. So I think putting these consequences in place in a contract will help mitigate this issue and make players really think about where they want to grow and develop as a player. And I got like for some players, you get to a program and this program doesn't work for you. And it is not meshing with you, and you're not growing in this program. And so you want to go to something better. You or not even better. It doesn't have to be a bigger school, bigger program. You could go to a smaller school, but that coach is working for you. That's what happened to Jalen Hurts, and now he's a great player in the NFL. He left Bama, and now he went to a coach that molded him into what he is today. So you look at that and you're like, okay, in an instant like that, I get it.
Yeah.
But it's the players who keep flip flopping year to year, thinking, oh, I can find something better here. They're paying me more this year. They're paying me more. How about you mesh with the team? How about you look at the coach that you have and say, is this going to work for me for the next year? Is this going to work for me for the next 2 years? And you commit to that. There's something you can learn from everybody. And I think players really need to start growing and developing. I think that's what these big coaches like Nick Saban and Kirby Smart have talked about. Like I used to be able to develop these players over 4 years. And that's what Dabo is clinging to at Texas or at Clemson. He wants to develop these players. That's why he's going straight to high school, not really getting from the transfer portal. And that works for him. And you know what? He's doing great right now with his strategy. And maybe that will work out in the end. It's one way to do things. But in this current climate of NIL, I really think there needs to be some sort of contract.
Yeah, I mean, like you were saying, if we're gonna treat them like professional athletes and we're gonna allow them to make these big decisions like a professional athlete, they should be accountable like a professional athlete. They should have to, in my opinion, I think you should have to stay a minimum of a season. The season's long. You're not just talking a couple weeks. When you're giving out a couple weeks in, that's not a good sign. And I don't know, I was raised by people who, wanted me to see seasons through when I played sports if I didn't like them. I didn't quit a lot of things growing up. So I hope that there is more of a standard and rules coming into this. I don't think it's fair for them to be able to skip out because there might be a little bit more of an opportunity.
And so much for watching this week's Sexy Stuff. We had an amazing time reviewing all of the Week 5 college football shenanigans and also talking to you about rivalries and the transfer portal. I'm Emma,
And I'm Molly.
and we'll see you later this week previewing Week 6. Bye.